Riding the wind with a sword, I can dispel the demons in the world. With wine and joy, I am carefree, but without wine, I am also insane. Drink all the river in one drink, then swallow the sun and moon in another drink. 1,000 cups of drunkenness will not fall, only I, the wine sword immortal. Lin Xian crossed the Douluo continent but became a twin martial soul master with only half an innate soul power. At the beginning, he was kicked out of Shrek Academy by Udashi and suffered a lot of humiliation. However, his twin martial souls were completely blackened due to his poor aptitude. Your martial soul, because your soul power cultivation method is too outdated, hates iron not turning into steel, and has now turned black. You have obtained the supreme mind technique of swordsmanship, the Tai Xian Jing. Your martial soul couldn't bear to look directly at your swordsmanship, almost vomited, and has now turned black. You have obtained the sword immortal Li Bai's swordsmanship, swordsman's journey. Your martial soul is too weak to match the identity of a god-level martial soul due to the power of your soul skills. It has now been blackened out. The content of your soul ring soul skills has been replaced with 2-sleeved green snakes, sword opening Tianmen, and sword 23. Divine level strong attack series soul sword without edge, divine level food series soul wine gourd. Lin Xian joined the soul hall, becoming the holy son of the soul hall, reversing the fate of Douluo continent. Years later, the legend of the wine sword immortal in the martial soul hall has spread throughout the Douluo continent. Bibidong. Lin Xian, my heart belongs to you alone. Xian Rinxue. Lin Xian, you are amazing. I love you so much. And conversely you Xiaogang. Lin Xian has abused me 1,000 times, but he never tires of it. Tang Hao. Haotian hammer is the first martial soul weapon in the mainland. Why was it crushed by a long sword? Tang San. Since I was born 3 times, how could I be born Xian? I thought I was the protagonist of the mainland, but I didn't expect to be left behind by Lin Xian's scum. Keywords of the novel. Douluo. Twin blackened martial souls, shocked Bibidong no pop-ups, Douluo. Twin blackened martial souls, shocked Bibidong complete collection download, Douluo. Twin blackened martial souls, shocked Bibidong latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Wastewood Soul Master, Martial Soul Blackening. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Wastewood Soul Master, Martial Soul Blackening. Oh, no, listen to me. A young man dressed in black fell heavily on the ground at the entrance of the village, with many onlookers gathered around him. Most of these people are teenagers, with most of them accompanied by their parents, such as students who have registered at Soul Master Academy. Because on the wooden arch at the entrance of the village, there hangs a somewhat tattered plaque with the simple 5 characters. Shrek College. And before these 5 words, there is also a green avatar that looks like the head of a humanoid monster, which is a bit disgusting. I'm really a twin martial soul, I didn't lie to you, the young man exclaimed angrily. I am 13 years old this year, and my soul power happens to be at level 21. Why do you refuse to let me enroll? Twin martial souls. Upon hearing these 4 words, the onlookers couldn't help but take a cold breath and a look of shock flashed in their eyes. This is the Douluo continent, where martial souls are revered and soul masters are the professions of human beings. And twin martial souls are unparalleled geniuses who are born with 2 martial souls. Such geniuses, the Heavenly Do Empire and the Star Luo Empire, have only appeared in the past 100 years. Even if an ordinary soul master cultivates to the level of title Douluo, regardless of the almost unattainable heavenly and earthly treasures such as soul bones and 100,000-year soul rings, they can only have 9 soul rings and 9 soul skills. However, the soul master of twin martial souls, due to the addition of 1 martial soul, can possess 18 soul rings and 18 soul skills, so their strength is definitely far superior to that of a soul master of the same level who only has 1 martial soul. However, not to mention that there is no one in 10,000, even if it is difficult to find a genius in 100,000 or 1 million, why is Shrek Academy treating him like this? In front of the young man, a middle-aged man dressed in a crude linen robe, of medium height, who looked about 40 or 50 years old, looked at the young man with half sarcasm and half anger, and a contemptuous smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Twin martial souls. Damn it. Do you think I haven't figured out your details? I've already asked acquaintances from the Martial Souls branch hall in the city to inquire. Your so-called twin martial souls, Lin Xian, are just a rusty iron sword and a broken yellow gourd that I don't know what it can do. The middle-aged man snorted coldly. Moreover, even though you are a twin martial soul, your innate soul power is only half level. What an incredible waste of wood is this. Thanks to my impressive soul master theory master personally taking you to school, I didn't expect you to be such a waste. But you once said, there are no useless martial souls, only useless soul masters. Lin Xian exclaimed angrily. You once said before that after arriving at Shrek College, you would take me as a disciple under the witness of your friend, the dean of Shrek College, Frand. You Xiaogang, how could you not keep your word? However, before Lin Xian could finish speaking, he was kicked upside down by the angry Yu Xiaogang and landed in the area outside Shrek Academy. Humph, a useless person like you deserves the guidance of the first theoretical master in my soul master world. Are you thinking of a peach? Yu Xiaogang said triumphantly. He looked at the young man in front of him, who was very similar to him in pain because of his own disabled martial soul back then, as if he had a sense of superiority. Hurry up and get out of here. If you dare to bark in front of our Shrek Academy again, be careful not to risk your life. Yu Xiaogang left with a brush of his sleeve, while the onlookers around him also lost interest in continuing to watch the excitement and continued to queue up on their own. However, there were still some kind-hearted people who came over and helped Lin Xian up, wanting to take him to a medical clinic in Soto City for examination. After all, Lin Xian's simple black clothes have worn out in many places now, and there are some abrasions on his arms and face. His originally clear and handsome face has now become somewhat disheveled. Thank you, but no need. After thanking those who helped him, Lin Xian refused their invitation to take him to the hospital to treat his injuries and limped towards the distance. Other travelers who travel through the world in the book either become the majestic immortal king or the great emperor who governs the world. It's good to come to me. When they travel through a world like Douluo, which is a mystical sewer, it's still a waste of wood. How could my life be so miserable? Lin Xian was originally a college student with excellent academic performance, and his only hobby was to lie in bed and read some online novels in addition to studying. But yesterday, while he was reading the ending of the novel on his newly purchased Bangzi brand phone, his phone suddenly exploded, and he was tragically killed. However, when he woke up again, he was stunned by the unfamiliar and somewhat familiar scene before him, and at the same time, unfamiliar memories were also instilled in his mind. I have traveled to the Douluo continent, but it is a somewhat unique and rebellious waste. The original owner was originally an orphan in the city of Soto. At the age of 6, he awakened his martial soul in the Martial Soul branch hall of Soto, but was discovered to be a genius of twin martial souls. However, the talent of this twin martial soul genius seems a bit outrageous, and the innate soul power is only half level. But even so, he is still a twin martial soul, a rare genius on the mainland. So from then on, the original owner was adopted by the owner of the Martial Soul branch hall in Soto City, carefully trained, and prepared to introduce the original owner Lin Xian to the Martial Soul Hall Academy at the appropriate age, surprising Pope Bibidong and elevating his position in the Martial Soul Hall. However, no one expected that the original owner's qualifications were simply inferior to the heavens. Not only is his innate soul power so weak that it can be almost negligible, but his meridians are also mostly blocked, and the speed of cultivating soul power is incredibly slow. If we compare the meridians of the human body to modern roads, the meridians of a genius soul master are like a green light, and soul power can flow unobstructed in them. And ordinary soul masters have more green lights and fewer red lights in their meridians. Although the speed of soul power running in them is not very fast, it is still sufficient. However, Lin Xian was different. Among the 10 traffic lights in his meridians, 9.5 were red lights, and the remaining half were still yellow lights. The speed of his soul power was incredibly slow. The master of the Martial Soul Branch Hall in Soto City was quite devoted to Lin Xian. Since he entered the branch hall at the age of 6, he had found countless rare treasures and treasures from heaven and earth, allowing Lin Xian to take them and improve his cultivation speed. To put it bluntly, even a pig-like soul beast with a 10-year cultivation would be urged to the level of 1,000 years after eating the things that Lin Xian had eaten, equivalent to the cultivation of a human soul master. However, after 7 years of drug abuse, Lin Xian had just reached the threshold of level 21 a few days ago and became a great soul master. And he is also the most useless soul master, just because he was bullied by Xiaogang, the winner of the previous most useless soul master trophy, it is evident. Because it was really unbearable for Lin Xian's turtle-crawling cultivation speed, the Soul Branch Hall of Soto City could only let Lin Xian leave. However, while wandering aimlessly in the city of Soto, Lin Xian encountered the master Xiaogang, who came to secretly observe his disciple Tang San's enrollment in Shrek Academy. After a brief conversation, it was discovered that Lin Xian was also a twin martial soul. Xiaogang was so excited that he wanted to perform a pole dance with his heart beating in the city of Soto. His disciple Tang San was originally a twin martial soul, but today he unexpectedly encountered another twin martial soul. This is such incredible luck. So next, that's what happened just now. Xiaogang vowed to take Lin Xian as his disciple, and Lin Xian also thought he had fallen in love with Tang San, the son of the plain, as a cheap senior brother. Therefore, he followed Xiaogang to Shrek College to enroll. But several teachers from Shrek College stayed here for many years and also knew about Lin Xian, who couldn't support the wall, so they told Xiaogang everything. In a fit of anger, Xiaogang immediately took action and, with the cooperation of several teachers, suppressed Lin Xian before kicking him out of Shrek Academy. As for the matter of accepting apprentices mentioned earlier, it is even more contradictory and completely unacceptable. Lin Xian, who was sighing and feeling disheartened by his incredible talent, suddenly heard a strange voice in his mind. Your rusted scrap iron long sword, due to feeling too weak, has now turned black and transformed from a scrap soul to a divine level soul. Your broken yellow gourd with a leaking martial soul has blackened out due to feeling too weak, transforming from a useless martial soul to a divine level martial soul. Lin Xian. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. He's just a trash soul master with twin martial souls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In Chapter 2, he is just a trash soul master with twin martial souls. Your martial soul feels that your qualifications are so useless that it can be considered unbearable. Hate that iron cannot turn into steel, it has now turned black, and your cultivation speed is *100. When Lin Xian heard the voice in his mind, he felt as if it was because his emotions were too low and his consciousness had hallucinations. But in an instant, he was certain that this was not an illusion, but a reality that was real and not illusory. Originally, during his cultivation, he felt like he was on par with water and fire, and no matter how hard he tried to absorb it, it was difficult for him to transform the external heaven and earth elemental energy into his soul power. However, at this moment, it quickly rushed into his body. Of course, this kind of speed is only relative. If Lin Xian's original cultivation speed was like an untightened faucet, occasionally dripping 1 or 2 drops of water. So now Lin Xian's cultivation speed is like a gushing spring, at least reaching the normal level of an ordinary soul master. However, just as Lin Xian was feeling fortunate in his heart, the familiar voice rang out again in his mind. Sensing that even with 100 times cultivation speed activated, your cultivation speed is still slow like a snail. Your martial soul indicates that even with your qualifications, 100 times cultivation speed is of no use to you. It cannot even bring along pig teammates like you. Once again, it blackens out and replenishes the soul power cultivation method in your consciousness, successfully transforming into the swordsmanship mind technique, Tai Xian Jing. Tai Xian Jing. In the beginning, there was the Tao, and the Tao coexisted with the God. The Tao is the God, and the way of the God is natural. The doors of various wonders are both mysterious and mysterious. The Tai Xian Jing is the supreme sword technique created by the sword immortal Li Bai. Focusing on cultivation can wash tendons and cut marrow, transforming one's own constitution into an innate supreme sword body. Boom! A silver-white shocking sword chi surged into the sky, piercing straight into the sky. Even the scattered white clouds in the sky were pierced by this terrifying sword energy beam, creating a circular void. At this moment, Lin Xian stood up involuntarily, and in his right hand, a 3-foot-long sword appeared. On top of these 3-foot-long swords, there were mottled iron-red rust stains. Rust stains make it difficult to find any trace of its charm. At this moment, the soul power flow in Lin Xian's meridians, which was originally running at an ordinary speed, suddenly accelerated and slowly compressed in his lower abdomen elixir field, finally turning into a bright silver, sticky energy like mercury. This is the sword cultivation special energy condensed after practicing the Tai Xian Jing, Sword Yuan. What about the rusty sword? The divine sword has no edge, it is exquisite and not skilled. Today, I will use my blood to charge you. Under the stirring of his soul power, coupled with the accumulated anger and humiliation he endured after crossing this world, Lin Xian couldn't help but howl in the sky. A drop of crimson blood essence seeped out from his forehead, and there were occasional silver flashes in this drop of blood essence, which was the sword yuan of the Tai Xian Jing. Zheng. The sound of dragon chants echoed, and the mottled rust on the body of Lin Xian's long sword turned into golden dragon patterns scattered throughout the sword. Under the silver-white sword light, the originally soaring sword energy beam surged again, even visible in the city of Soto. "What is this?" said a middle-aged man in a black and red robe in the Seoul Subdistrict Hall of Soto City, looking at the breathtaking sword energy and feeling somewhat incredulous. What a familiar sword energy, isn't it? At the entrance of the village, the onlookers had already caused a huge commotion due to the birth of the divine sword in Lin Xian's hand. I saw all the soul masters present, whose martial souls were weapons and martial souls, involuntarily detach and bend their bodies towards the dragon-patterned divine sword in Lin Xian's hand, as if loyal courtiers were paying homage to their king. A long sword, a short sword, a dagger, a long spear, and even a shield all emerged from the crowd, forming a circle around Lin Xian and paying homage to the bright silver sword aura pillar in the center. It's impossible, what is this? At the registration office at the village entrance, Li Yusong, who was responsible for receiving the registered soul masters, involuntarily appeared in his hand with a long stick wrapped in dragon patterns. He wanted to release it and go to pay homage to Lin Xian in front of him. However, Li Yusong was ultimately a soul emperor with profound cultivation. He used his soul power to forcefully suppress the movement of the martial soul, which made the dragon pattern stick in his hand quiet down and was taken back into his body. Among the onlookers, a boy with an ordinary appearance and a girl in a pink dress standing beside him quickly covered his left hand with his right hand. A black light slowly condensed on his left hand, as if something was about to break through and emerge. However, at this moment, an invisible wave instantly enveloped the boy's body, and the strange movement of his left hand also disappeared instantly. The black light transformed into a stream of light and surged back into his left hand, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Standing by the side of this young man was the master Xiaogang. When he saw the strange movement on the boy's body, he was immediately taken aback. How could this be? How could Haotian Hammer possibly worship the long sword in that useless boy's hand? Did I really take a blind eye? Lin Xiaogang didn't walk far, after all, his previous limping condition was definitely not enough to walk fast. So the mutation in his martial soul also instantly affected the entire village entrance. Xiaogang originally wanted to watch Lin Xian leave with a gloomy expression, in order to relieve his own qi and bring a hint of pleasure to his already twisted and useless martial soul. But he didn't expect that Lin Xian, who was originally just a useless person, would suddenly trigger such a vision. At this moment, in Shrek Academy, two figures, standing on the ground like lightning, also arrived at the registration office. Xiaogang. One of them saw Xiaogang standing in the crowd and exclaimed with some surprise. This person is a middle-aged man in his 50s. This person has a very distinctive face, with a slightly forward protruding chin, wide cheekbones, a flat face, and a slightly hooked nose, making him look very cunning. He wore a pair of black-framed crystal glasses on his face, with rigid square frames that gave him a strange feeling no matter how he looked at them. And beside him was a burly man with an incredibly muscular figure, as if his swollen muscles were about to burst out of his short shirt. Old Owl. Xiaogang's eyes lit up when he saw the newcomer, and a smile appeared on his originally stiff face. Tang San and Xiao Wu, this is the Dean of Shrek Academy and also my good friend, the famous four-eyed owl friend in the Soul Master world. But Xiaogang paused for a moment, then looked at the burly man and asked Friend with some confusion, is this the teacher of the college? I wonder if you can know his name. Hello, Master, I've been famous for a long time. I'm Zhao Wuji, the burly man chuckled. Oh, it's actually Zhao Wuji, the immortal king. I've heard so much about him. After a polite exchange of greetings, the few of them looked at Lin Xian, who was still emitting a silver-white shocking sword aura. Friend coughed lightly and asked Xiaogang, Xiaogang, you were here before. Can you tell me what happened? Oh, it's not a big deal, Xiaogang pointed to Lin Xian and said. That kid is a trash soul master with twin martial souls. He even shamelessly wants to apprentice to me and wants to join Shrek Academy, but I directly refused. Zhao Wuji. Fran. What? Many teachers at Shrek College. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Admission to Shrek College. Birds are useless. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Admission to Shrek College. Birds are useless. The trash soul master of twin martial souls. Everyone present was shocked by Xiaogang's words. When can twin martial souls also be called garbage soul masters? What are the names of those of us who only have one martial soul? Scum. Xiaogang, are you confused? That's a twin martial soul. Fran was so angry that his nostrils were almost smoking, so he couldn't faint. My old friend hasn't seen each other much for many years, perhaps something is wrong with his mental state. At this moment, Zhao Wuji scratched his head in confusion and reached out his hand, which was as thick as a carrot, to index several times. Perhaps it was the descendant of the 7-kill sword who came to our Shrek Academy, isn't it? I haven't heard of any descendants of Kendo Chinchin. And even if there are descendants, they should be hidden as treasures in the 7 treasures of the glass sect. How could they be thrown to us? No, even the 7-kill sword couldn't have such power. Li Yusong shook his head and looked at Lin Xian's direction with bright eyes. If such a talented soul master could enter Shrek Academy, he would definitely become his disciple. Upon seeing the reactions of the people around him, Xiaogang also understood that there was a language error in his words earlier. He quickly continued to explain, Teacher Li, isn't this kid the one I brought to school before? You said he was a joke about the Martial Soul Branch Hall in Soto City before, why is it now? What, it's him. Not only Li Yusong, but also Fran and Zhao Wuji and others were surprised. They have also heard of Lin Xian's name, after all soul masters around Soto City know about this foolish matter of the Martial Soul Branch Hall in Soto City. They lost their wives and soldiers, and spent a lot of rare resources to cultivate a bottomless pit that was not filled. The silver-white sword light beside Lin Xian was too dazzling to see his face clearly. And the black coat he was wearing was also an ordinary style, so Li Yusong couldn't recognize him at the first time. The second awakening of the martial soul should be the second awakening of the martial soul, murmured Frand. Twin martial souls without weakness, how could there be a medicine jar that is not fully filled? The reason why his cultivation was mediocre before may be because his martial soul has not fully awakened, or his body has some problems, which is why his talent is so poor. But today I came to my Shrek Academy to register, and coincidentally, his martial soul has awakened again. This is a peerless genius bestowed upon us by heaven, Shrek. Xiaogang's mouth slightly opened and closed, wanting to say something but not saying anything. Fran didn't know how he had treated Lin Xian just now, and looking at the current situation, he felt embarrassed to say it. All of Lin Xian's soul power was converted into silver sword elements. The sword elements circulated through the meridians according to the route of the Tai Xian Jing for 30.6 weeks. At this time, all the previously stagnant meridians in Lin Xian's body had been cleared. In addition, with the blessing of cultivation speed *100 given by the blackening of the martial soul, the movement speed of the sword element in his body is as fast and turbulent as the Yangtze River, and the growth rate of cultivation is also extremely fast. And most importantly, due to blockages in his meridians, most of the precious medicinal powers he had taken in the martial soul branch hall of Soto City in the past few years were accumulated in his meridians and could not be absorbed by him. But at this moment, all the 8 extraordinary meridians in Lin Xian's body were washed away by the sword element of the Tai Xian Jing, and the medicinal power seeped into Lin Xian's body under the operation of the sword element, causing his cultivation to skyrocket in an instant. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3. In the end, Lin Xian's cultivation was frozen at level 28, an increase of 7 levels in soul power compared to the previous 21 levels when he first entered the realm of a great soul master. However, even so, the medicinal power in his meridians has not been exhausted and will continue to strengthen his physique unconsciously. With a gesture, the rusty sword fell into the palm of the hand. The dragon pattern on the sword instantly disappeared, restoring to the iron-red mottled copper rust. 2 yellow centenary soul rings coiled around the sword body, silently. But now, who dares to believe that Lin Xian's martial soul is just a shabby rusty iron sword? Just like now, who dares to treat Lin Xian as a shameful garbage soul master? Wufeng sword. The rusted iron long sword of the martial soul completely blackens out, transforming into a divine-level martial soul. The divine sword has no edge, and is large and exquisite without craftsmanship. The surface of the sword body is usually covered with a layer of iron-red rust. After using soul power, the iron-red rust will turn into a golden dragon pattern. With one strike, even time and space can be cut open, and everything cannot stop its blade. The divine sword has no edge, is that your name? Lin Xian lightly stroked the blade of the sword and said with emotion. Blackening is 10 times stronger, washing is 3 times weaker. This sentence is really not wrong. At this moment, Frand and Zhao Wuji also came to Lin Xian. Lin Xian only recognized these 2 people with his eyes, who looked very similar to those in Douluo continent anime, and understood their identities. Hello Lin Xian, I'm Franda, the Dean of Shrek College, and this is teacher Zhao Wuji. Franda chuckled and nodded at Lin Xian, saying, Congratulations on your second awakening of martial soul. With your qualifications, you no longer need to go through the entrance test. Welcome to become a new student at Shrek College. However, just as Fran was immersed in his dream of obtaining a peerless genius student, Lin Xian's indifferent voice came to his ears. I once heard a friend of the dean say that there are no useless martial souls in the world, only useless soul masters. However, even if I met the admission test standards of Shrek College, the teacher in charge of registration refused to accept me first, and then the master who brought me to Shrek College to register hit me hard and kicked me out of the college. Dean Frand, if it were you, would you choose to enter Shrek College in such a situation? This Frand was momentarily stunned upon hearing the words. He looked back at Xiaogang and Li Yusong for some unknown reason, clearly wanting them to give an explanation. Li Yusong walked over to Fran with an awkward expression and whispered a few words in his ear. Upon hearing this, Fran's eyes suddenly showed a hint of anger. He wanted to turn around and question Xiaogang, but due to his old friend's affection, he could only give up. After a moment of pause, Fran took a deep breath and leaned slightly towards Lin Xian, saying, "As the dean, I apologize to you for what the college had done to you before. But I hope you can understand that if you were the previous disabled martial soul, according to our Shrek Academy motto, you would not be able to accept you. But now that your martial soul has awakened twice, you can naturally enroll in Shrek Academy again." At this point, Fran reached out his hand to Lin Xian. Obviously, as long as Lin Xian held his hand, he could enter Shrek Academy to study. However, Lin Xian didn't pay attention to Fran's outstretched hand at this moment. Instead, he shook his head and said, "This is also my doubt. Since Xiaogang has been emphasizing his nonsense theory to me, saying that there are no useless martial souls, only useless soul masters. He even said that his good friend Fran also strongly agrees with his statement. So why does the academy still have to recruit talented disciples under the age of 13 who can reach level 21? In other words, if someone has such a talent, they can go to the academies of the two empires and even the martial soul hall, even if they are promoted to near the soul king before the age of 20. Why join Shrek Academy?" Upon hearing this, both Dean Fran and several other teachers from Shrek College were filled with anger in their eyes. Lin Xian's words undoubtedly uncovered their deepest scars and exposed all the truth to everyone in blood. But at this time, there are a large number of students and parents who have registered. If they take action against Lin Xian here and spread it to Soto City, it will inevitably affect Shrek College. So Fran had no choice but to suppress his anger and ask Lin Xian, "What exactly do you want to do?" "It's nothing, since Xiaogang said before that I am a useless soul master and not worthy of studying at Shrek Academy, I will now challenge the students at Shrek Academy to see who the real garbage is." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Black Soul Technique, Heaven Slaying Sword Technique, and Two Sleeves Green Snake. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Black Soul Technique, Heaven Slaying Sword Technique, and Two Sleeves Green Snake. Upon hearing Lin Xian's words, a tall young man standing behind several Shrek College teachers could no longer bear it. He pushed away the person in front of him and strode up to Lin Xian, shouting loudly at him. "The abandoned martial soul is the same as the abandoned martial soul. Even if you awaken again, what would happen? My Dai Mubai martial soul is the most top-notch white tiger, and now I have achieved the cultivation of the third ring soul master. It is the cultivation of the academy that has made me where I am today. And even if you awaken again, you are just a small level 2 or 11 soul master. Even the students who signed up today are mostly stronger than you. Dai Mubai, martial soul white tiger, level 37 war soul Zun, represents Shrek Academy to accept your challenge." However, at this moment, Fran frowned. Dai Mubai is already a high-level soul master with a cultivation level close to that of the soul sect. There is indeed suspicion of using the big to bully the small against the big soul master, Lin Xian. This can be seen from the disdainful eyes of the new students and parents who took the entrance exam around them. "Mubai, come back. The battle between Soul Master and Soul Master is too unfair. We Shrek Academy never bully anyone," said Fran in a low voice. "Go to the academy, call the fat guy over and have him fight against Lin Xian." Dai Mubai glared at Lin Xian with some anger upon hearing this, waved his fist as if demonstrating to Lin Xian, and then walked towards Shrek Academy. Xiaogang felt a bit awkward at this moment. After all, this matter was provoked by him, so it's not good to stay behind at this time. He walked quickly to Fran's side, pretending to be an extraordinary expert, and said to Lin Xian sternly, "Lin Xian, I'll give you another chance. As long as you take back what you just said and enroll in Shrek Academy, I can take you as a disciple. You know, I am the #1 theoretical master in the Soul Master realm. Become my disciple, and you will definitely reach the peak of the Soul Master realm in the future. Lin Xian sneered and said sarcastically, what can we learn from you? Where did your so-called top 10 core competencies of martial souls come from? Don't you have any points in your mind? Or is it that your martial soul is a pig that can fart, and you have learned the ability to fart with your mouth too? I boast all day that I am the so-called first theoretical master in the Soul Master realm. However, which of the theories you are talking about is unknown to the sects in the Soul Master realm? I don't know how to be grateful for stealing things from elsewhere, but I still want to own them. Can you still have some of the lineage of the Smiths? Lin Xian's words could be described as piercing Yu Xiaogang's heart, cursing him so hard that his eyes turned black and he shook his body a few times, almost not falling. He opened his eyes wide and pointed angrily at Lin Xian, biting his teeth with a thumping sound. You, how dare you? What are you pointing at me for? Let me ask you, you Dashi, do you usually have trouble sleeping at night and sometimes suddenly break out in cold sweat? Lin Xian said lightly. Well, what does this have to do with you? Yu Xiaogang's face stiffened, and he looked at Lin Xian with some disbelief, obviously being hit by Lin Xian's words. Have you been experiencing loss of appetite, dark circles under your eyes, and easily getting angry lately? Lin Xian asked again. Well, yes, Yu Xiaogang replied in surprise. Now even he couldn't deny it, and he wanted to know what Lin Xian was going to say next. Do you feel a slight pain below your ribs when walking, and you also have to split into 2 paths when going to the bathroom? Lin Xian exclaimed loudly. What, you even split my urine? Yu Dashi was suddenly surprised, ignoring Lin Xian's scolding for half a day earlier. She quickly asked, what kind of illness is this? You have kidney deficiency. Lin Xian laughed heartily and said. Upon hearing Lin Xian's words, the onlookers couldn't help but burst into laughter, and their eyes occasionally glanced towards the lower part of Yu Dashi's body. No, it's impossible, how could I? Yu Dashi was about to argue, but she couldn't help feeling guilty when she recalled thinking of her old lovers, Bibidong and Lu Erlong, late at night, and the small games she played with her hands. Cough, Lin Xian, don't talk about those unimportant things. Our Shrek Academy students have arrived, let's start fighting now. Fran glanced at Yu Xiaogang standing next to him with a look of indifference, his face slightly proud, and he shrugged his position below his body. It turns out that Xiaogang has this problem. It seems that Erlong Mei was right not to follow him, Fran said to himself. Men, you must do it. Dai Mubai arrived at the venue, accompanied by a chubby man with short hair and small eyes. This person is not tall and has 2 small mustaches on his lips, which seem to have just grown after development. It looks like 2 mustaches at first glance. Teacher, I heard that an uninterested kid not only refused the invitation from our college, but also wanted to challenge the students from our college. The chubby little boy said to Fran casually. Don't worry, since Ma Hongjun has taken action, it must be easy to catch. Let's see how I can burn that kid into a black charcoal head. Hee hee, grass chicken. Lin Xian chuckled lightly, but it hit Ma Hongjuan's soft spot. Ma Hongjuan's martial soul is a mutated evil fire phoenix from the traditional grass chicken martial soul, so he dislikes others calling him grass chicken martial soul. At this moment, he looked at Lin Xian and said angrily, Kid, how dare you speak to me like that? Are you the useless martial soul garbage who wants to challenge our academy? Who is garbage? It will be clear after a battle. Lin Xian was not afraid at all and snorted coldly. Then come on. A purple-red light surged out of Ma Hongjuan's body, and his short hair suddenly lengthened and converged towards the center, transforming into a moxagon-like hairstyle. The wings of the bird's martial soul did not appear, but as soon as the purple-red light shone out of the body, it immediately released a strong heat. 2 yellow soul rings rose from his feet at the same time, and long feathers extended from his exposed thick arms. My hands have also become claw-shaped. Ma Hongjun, Martial Soul Evil Fire Phoenix, Level 28 War Soul Master, represents Shrek Academy to accept your challenge. In Lin Xian's hand, there were 2 light and agile sword flowers, with 2 yellow soul rings coiling around the sword body. Lin Xian, Wuhuan Wufeng Sword, Level 28 War Soul Master. What, he's actually at level 28. The people at Shrek College were suddenly surprised. At this moment, Xiaogang's eyes were also filled with regret and resentment. He knew that he had completely missed out on the talented disciple in front of him who had already been acquired. Just as Lin Xian was about to take action, a familiar sound of prompts rang out in his mind. Your martial soul feels that the power of your first soul skill, the chop, is too weak, indicating that such a useless soul skill is not worthy of its divine level martial soul identity. It has now been blackened out, and the soul skill content has been revised. The first soul ring soul skill has now been changed to the chop heaven pulling sword technique. Zhan Tian Ba swordsmanship. An explosive soul skill that draws out the sword at the fastest speed to kill opponents. The power of the soul skill can grow and can be continuously enhanced through practice. When practicing to the final perfect point, a sword pull and a slash can separate heaven and earth. Your martial soul feels that the power of your second soul skill, Sword Gang, is too weak, indicating that this Sword Gang is not enough to peel apples. It has now turned black and the soul skill content has been revised. The second soul ring soul skill has now been changed to 2 sleeves green snake. 2 sleeves green snake. Sword God Li Chuangang's proud skill emphasizes both sword and spirit in his sword moves. It is a combination of the imperial sword and the vigorous sword. Under the traction of qi, the vigorous sword twists its direction and undergoes extreme changes, achieving the ultimate level of having moves in swordsmanship. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Green Snake Breaks Fire Phoenix, Full Moon Slashes White Tiger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Green Snake Breaks Fire Phoenix, Full Moon Slashes White Tiger. At this moment, Ma Hongjun looked at Lin Xian in front of him with some confusion. Since the two of them finished introducing themselves to each other and the battle had begun, Lin Xian seemed to be lost in thought, muttering something incessantly. If I were to listen closer, Lin Xian's muttered words seemed to be: Blackening is 10,000 times stronger, washing is 3 times weaker. What a mess, kid, since you're not taking action, then I won't be polite. Ma Hongjun raised his hands, and the yellow first soul ring of a century suddenly lit up on his body. He suddenly opened his mouth, and a thin purple-red flame spewed out in the direction of Lin Xian. The high heat twisted the air, and the purple flames didn't look intense, shooting out like an extended flame in the air. The first soul skill, Phoenix Fire Line. The purple-red phoenix flame was 5 meters long and flew towards Lin Xian's face. But at this moment, Lin Xian still seemed to be immersed in a dream, with no signs of resisting at all. Humph, this kid has sharp teeth and sharp mouth, but unfortunately his skills are not good. He had already let out a big talk just now, but now he can't even fight against his only first soul skill, and he hasn't even dodged. As expected, garbage is garbage. Xiaogang let out a cold snort. Just now, Lin Xian made a big fool of him in front of the onlookers, causing him to lose face. At this moment, his heart was filled with resentment and resentment. If you can't get such a genius as a disciple, then it's good to destroy it. Zheng. With a flash of sword light, the sound of dragon chants spread all around. The silver-white sword light radiated from the blade of the sword without a sharp edge, and the rust spread all over the blade turned into a golden dragon pattern again. The sword element inside Lin Xian's body operated on its own, and when he raised his right arm, he swung his sword and cut it out. The silver-white sword light suddenly exploded in the entire field like a white exercise, and the purple-red flame was like a thin bamboo pole, separated by the sharp sword in Lin Xian's hand. What? Impossible. The fat man's phoenix evil fire is extremely difficult to deal with. Once it gets infected, it is difficult to extinguish on its own, and it will also attach to the infected object. How could it be so simple to be chopped open? Dai Mubai said incredulously. At this moment, Fran and Zhao Wuji exchanged a glance, and a hint of surprise flashed in their eyes. Although Ma Hongjuan's martial soul is derived from poultry, it is a true evil fire phoenix and the most top-notch beast martial soul. Even the first beast martial soul on the continent, such as the blue electric Tyrannosaurus rex, can only be on par with phoenix-style martial souls such as the evil fire phoenix, ice phoenix, and light phoenix. As for Dai Mubai's Golan white tiger martial soul, it is even weaker compared to these previous martial souls, and its combat power cannot be compared to it. The blue electric Tyrannosaurus rex and the black dragon clan of the beast god Emperor Heaven, as well as the hell demon dragon clan of Ziji, all belong to the true dragon. Therefore, the blue electric Tyrannosaurus rex soul is a true dragon-type soul that can be on par with the phoenix-type soul. But the rusty sword in Lin Xian's hand was able to easily cut open Ma Hongjuan's phoenix fire line, indicating that his martial soul level was not only not weaker than the evil fire phoenix, but also possibly even stronger than the evil fire phoenix. What is a martial soul more powerful than a top martial soul? Divine-level martial soul. Thinking of this, Fran's breathing couldn't help but become heavy. With a single sword, Lin Xian's footsteps never stopped. As his figure flickered, the blade of his unarmed sword had already reached Ma Hongjuan's neck. Ha! Ma Hongjuan was greatly surprised, and the yellow second soul ring on his body instantly lit up. Bathing in fire phoenix, activate. With a loud bang, a fierce purple flame suddenly burst out from Ma Hongjuan's obese body, spreading outwards. Ma Hongjuan's second soul skill combines attack and defense. He believes he has purple evil fire to protect his body, and Lin Xian's long sword should not harm him. However, he suddenly felt a chill that penetrated through his bone marrow, which was an instinctive warning of danger that could threaten his life. On the body of the Wufeng sword, a bright yellow second soul ring lit up, and two green sword blades instantly exploded above the blade. The blue sword gang is like two mysterious green snakes lingering and circling around, intertwining with each other, causing the sword energy of the no-sharp sword to skyrocket. The second soul skill, Two Sleeves Green Snake. Under the urging of the sword element in the Tai Xian Jing, two blue swords shot out like two blue thunderbolts. The green sword aura overflowed around a 3-foot radius, enveloping Ma Hongjuan, who was shrouded in purple phoenix evil fire. Break it. Lin Xian let out a soft drink, and Ma Hongjuan's second soul skill, Bathing Fire Phoenix, suddenly disintegrated. The purple phoenix fire extinguished, and his chubby body shook for a while before falling to the ground. Fatty guy. Dai Mubai was shocked and ran quickly towards the field, while also activating his martial soul possession. A strong pale light suddenly burst out from Dai Mubai's body, his arms stretching to both sides, his chest bulging, and his bones cracking. Dai Mubai's muscles suddenly expanded all over his body, lifting his clothes high. Every muscle of his became extremely prominent under his clothes, and even the air around him had become manic. Dai Mubai's originally blonde hair instantly changed to a black and white color, with white accounting for the majority and several strands of black hair being particularly prominent among them. Four faint lines appeared on his forehead, 3 horizontally and 1 vertically, forming a perfect character for Wang. And his hands turned into a pair of tiger palms, which were twice as big as before. White hair covered the entire palm one by one, and with the flick of 10 fingers, short dagger-like claws kept poking out and retracting from the palm. Each claw was like a sharp blade, 8 inches long, shimmering with a faint cold light. Dai Mubai's arrival was naturally purposeful. Shrek Academy cannot be defeated by Lin Xian, otherwise it will inevitably lose face. So he must take action to defeat Lin Xian as quickly as possible, in order to maintain the reputation of Shrek Academy. The second soul skill, White Tiger Flame Light Wave. With Dai Mubai's roar, several milky white light balls spewed out from his mouth. These white light balls flew towards Lin Xian from different angles along their respective paths, blocking all directions that Lin Xian could dodge. Faced with the second soul skill launched by the high-level soul master Dai Mubai in front of him, Lin Xian still showed no signs of nervousness or fear. The first soul ring on the sword body of the Wufeng sword lit up, and he surprisingly chose to confront Dai Mubai head-on. Humph, beyond our control. Dai Mubai sneered. Launching several white tiger flame light waves in a row is already his limit now, and relying on Lin Xian, a great soul master with a level difference of nearly 10 levels from him, to resist his almost full force strike, in his opinion, it is nothing more than shaking the tree with a weak horse. Several light balls were circling and dancing in the air, shooting towards Lin Xian at an extremely fast speed. And what Lin Xian was waiting for was the opportunity for these light balls to approach him. Only then could his first soul skill be applied to all the white tiger flame light waves. The first soul skill, the heaven-slaying sword technique. At this moment, Lin Xian's eyes were incredibly clear, like the water of a glacier. His figure was short, and his sharp sword, which had already slanted to his waist, swung out in an instant. His entire body was pulled up with the sword, and the sword light drew a beautiful arc. A silver sword-like crescent suddenly flashed, and Dai Mubai's eyes were filled with a look of shock. He even felt the threat of death from Lin Xian's sword. The third soul skill, White Tiger Diamond Transformation. Dai Mubai's body, which had already become majestic due to being possessed by a martial soul, swelled again, with exaggerated muscles all over his body, even causing his upper clothes to be completely stretched out, revealing a terrifying muscular line. And the most eerie thing is that there are black horizontal lines on his exposed skin, which, if not for his lack of hair, are no different from tiger skin. Dai Mubai's pair of tiger palms grew larger in a circle, and the sharp blades that popped out from them turned bright silver. The most peculiar thing is that his whole body is shrouded in a strong golden light, as if he is gilded. Mubai's White Tiger Diamond Transformation is extremely powerful in both attack and defense. Coupled with his high-level Soul Lord strength, Lin Xian's sword will definitely not break through his defense. Zhao Wuji looked at the match in the field and confidently said. He has great confidence in Dai Mubai, who has been trained by himself. But just after 3 breaths, the expression on Zhao Wuji's face changed from confidence to astonishment, and even a hint of anger and fear. The silver sword light, which was originally like a crescent moon, suddenly surged and, like a full moon, instantly cut through all the white tiger flame light waves, as well as Dai Mubai's body attempting to attack Lin Xian under the cover of the white tiger flame light waves. Boom! The intense energy impact stirred up a burst of smoke and dust in the field. Seeing this, Fran quickly reached out and waved his hand. The wave of soul power stirred up a strong wind that instantly blew away all the smoke and dust, revealing 2 figures in the field. At this moment, Dai Mubai's martial soul possession had been forcibly released, and a bone-deep sword mark on his chest was shocking, with blood gushing out from his wound like a spring. He trembled as he looked at Churan, as if nothing had happened to Lin Xian, and then looked into the eyes of a young girl dressed in black with a very hot figure outside the crowd. In the girl's eyes, Dai Mubai in front of her was completely silent and empty, with even a hint of disheartened disappointment. Dai Mubai reluctantly reached out his hand, but his body still collapsed weakly. Kid, you dare to be so ruthless, I'll kill you. Zhao Wuji's anger surged up in his heart, and his figure shot out in the air. The second soul ring lit up, and a pair of golden bear paws slapped Lin Xian. Humph, Zhao Wuji, who are you going to kill? The immovable Mingwang in the famous soul-shaking master world has such a great deal of energy. How about fighting against me? The powerful and domineering roar of the lion was heard, and a blood-colored figure flew in an instant. A powerful soul power breath erupted, and Zhao Wuji's figure was instantly shaken to the point of taking 7 steps back. His eyes were unwilling to look at the person protecting Lin Xian. "It's you, Master of the Soul Branch Hall in Soto City, Yuchuan." End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Jade Xiaogang in the cup, strong support comes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Jade Xiaogang in the cup, strong support comes. Standing in the field was a tall, white-bearded old man who looked about 50 or 60 years old. The bones are tough, the muscles are strong, and the exposed skin emits a bronze metallic luster. From the appearance, it is evident that this person's physical strength is extremely strong. On top of the old man's body, a towering blood flame emanated, 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 3 black. 7 soul rings with the best matching were quietly hovering over his body, and the unparalleled soul power aura spread out in the field. At this moment, Fran's gaze also became solemn, and he walked up to stand shoulder to shoulder with Zhao Wuji. The main hall of the Soul Subdistrict Hall in Soto City, Yuchuan, is a bloodthirsty lion with a level 79 strong attack on the Soul Saint. He is only 1 step away from entering the Soul Douluo realm. The combat power of lion and tiger martial souls is extremely amazing, and Yuchuan's bloodthirsty lion martial soul combat style is even more fierce and violent. Even Fran's flying martial soul has some restraint against ground martial souls. It cannot be said that he can get a good deal from Yuchuan's subordinates. Fran, Lin Xian is a member of our Soul Branch Hall in Soto City. All Soul Masters in Soto City know about this matter. Are you here today to deal with him? Are you trying to deal with my Soul Branch Hall? Yukawa's words instantly changed Fran's expression, and he dared not say such words. The Martial Soul Hall is the top Soul Master force in the mainland. If you are a lonely family, it's okay. You can hide your name and avoid the pursuit of the Martial Soul Hall like Zhao Wuji did back then. But now he has established Shrek Academy, with such a foundation here. Not to mention the main part of the Martial Soul Hall, even the Martial Soul Branch Hall of Soto City, he dare not offend. After all, the scope of his academy is under the jurisdiction of Soto City. The powerful strength demonstrated by Lin Xian just now is truly impressive. With only 200-year soul skills and the cultivation level of a great soul master, he easily defeated Ma Hongjun of Phoenix martial soul and Mu Bai of White Tiger martial soul. This is such a terrifying talent. If such a highly promising genius who has achieved the title of Douluo can be included in Shrek College, there is no doubt that Shrek College has the potential to become a first-class Soul Master College on the whole continent in the future. And even if Lin Xian's personality is stubborn and unwilling to join Shrek Academy, then Fran must kill him here. The reason is the same as before, being hated by such a talented and extremely young Soul Master, perhaps at some point in the future, one's own life will fall into his hands. Feeling the fierce aura flickering over Fran's body, Yuchuan raised his eyebrows and sneered, "Why, do you want to take action?" A miscellaneous fish like Zhao Wuji, although I saw him today, I am too lazy to care about the little things he committed before. But Fran, if you take action against the Soul Branch Hall of Soto City today, I can guarantee that there will not be a living person left in Shrek Academy. Do you believe it? Lin Xian's mouth twitched and he thought to himself, I don't believe it. You should know that in Shrek Academy, there is a prince from the Star Luo Empire, a little princess from the Seven Treasures Glass Sect, the only son of the Haotian Douluo Tang Hao, and even a 100,000-year-old soul beast. This incredible lineup is truly beyond the power of a mere soul palace in Soto City. But at this moment, Fran's expression tightened, and his face became increasingly ugly. Although there are indeed some backgrounds behind his own academy that he knows or doesn't know, with his Shrek Academy, he is not worthy of allowing these forces to confront the Martial Soul Hall head-on. However, at this moment, Yu Xiaogang walked out of the crowd with high spirits. He took out a token from his pocket and held it in his hand, then spread out his hand to show it to Yuchuan. Are you people from the Seoul branch hall of Soto City? Alright, do you know this thing? Do you know who is standing in front of you? Yukawa's gaze fixed on the token, which had 6 patterns. Sword, hammer, crown, an incomplete human figure, a dragon, and a chrysanthemum. Martial Soul Hall, Pope's Order. Anyone holding this card holds the position of Elder of the Martial Soul Hall, just like the Pope personally visiting. Elder. Yukawa's face changed. You should know that the person holding the papal decree is the default Elder of the Martial Soul Hall, with a much higher status than him. In other words, once one acknowledges the elder identity of Xiaogang, they must pay homage to him and transfer the control of the Martial Soul Hall to him. In this case, if Xiaogang wants to do something to Lin Xian, Yuchuan not only cannot stop it, but also must help Xiaogang do it. Otherwise, it will be the following offense, which is an extremely serious crime within the Martial Soul Hall. But the relationship between Lin Xian and him was already good. If it weren't for the deacons in the branch hall opposing and pouring precious resources onto Lin Xian, Yuchuan wouldn't have let Lin Xian leave the Martial Soul branch hall in Soto City. Moreover, Lin Xian's talent is now stunning, and Yuchuan does not want him to be in danger. After all, he also wants to send Lin Xian to the Martial Soul Hall Academy, so that the Martial Soul Hall can record a merit for him. Just as Yuchuan was caught in a difficult decision, Lin Xian's lips lightly flicked and he said playfully, "As far as I know, there are several papal orders issued by the Martial Soul General Hall, some of which are among the upper 3 sections. And where did the piece in your hand, Yudashi, come from? Is it the 7 Treasures Glass sect, the Blue Electric Overlord sect, or, in other words, the Haotian sect?" With the 3 words Haotian sect spoken, the entire venue fell silent. The parents and students who had registered around had been temporarily taken away by the personnel of the Martial Soul Hall, and a few people in the room changed their faces when they heard Lin Xian's words. More than 10 years ago, the leader of the 3 sects in the Soul Master realm, Haotian sect, suffered a crazy attack from the Martial Soul Hall. Not only were many of its forces suppressed and scattered like birds and beasts, but even the main sect of Haotian sect was tightly closed, avoiding the world. If, according to Lin Xian's statement, Xiaogang's papal decree was obtained from Emperor Haotian, then the current situation seems somewhat interesting. Xiaogang's face changed, and he shouted at Lin Xian with a stern expression, "You're talking nonsense. You don't even bow down when you see the papal order. Can you bear the charges you've committed?" Lin Xian sneered to himself, thinking that Xiaogang's psychological quality was really lacking in some degree. Although Yuchuan's martial soul is a fierce bloodthirsty lion, it does not mean that he has no ulterior motives. On the contrary, how could a person who can become the main branch of the Martial Soul Hall be a simple commodity? Seeing that Xiaogang's reaction was somewhat too intense, Yuchuan also realized that there might be some issues with the papal decree in Xiaogang's hand. He coughed lightly and tentatively asked Xiaogang in front of him, "Your Highness, where did you get this papal decree from? Can you tell me about it?" Yuchuan's posture was lowered, but a pair of vicissitudes with a hint of blood were looking straight at Xiaogang in front of him, obviously asking for an explanation. "Do you deserve me to explain?" Xiaogang sneered, pretending to be disdainful. "The papal decree in my hand was indeed obtained from Tang San's father Tang Hao, but this matter cannot be spoken of. Otherwise, not to mention myself, even the entire Shrek Academy will be dug up 3 feet in search of Tang Hao's whereabouts." Xiaogang insisted on not speaking, and due to his possible elder status, Yuchuan dared not force him. Just as the situation was deadlocked, a powerful and vigorous voice suddenly came out. "He doesn't deserve you to explain, but what about me?" End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Invitation from the Lion Douluo to the Martial Soul City. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Invitation from the Lion Douluo to the Martial Soul City. Humph. Just a cold snort made Frank and Zhao Wuji, who were standing at the front of Shrek Academy, suddenly fly backwards. Even the soul power of their protective body was completely shattered by the shock of life, flying for more than 10 meters before landing on the ground. Both of them were caressing their chests with a withered expression, spitting out a mouthful of crimson blood on the ground and looking at the center of the field in shock. Standing next to the two, Xiaogang, who was not even more than 3 inches away, had nothing to do at this moment, indicating that the person's control of power had reached an unparalleled level. Seeing the miserable situation of Fran and Zhao Wuji, Xiaogang's face also turned a bit pale, and his gaze also looked towards the center of the field. In mid-air, a golden-red divine rainbow suddenly exploded, followed by a burly and tall figure appearing from it, landing steadily on the ground. The newcomer is an old man who is 8 feet tall, with scattered golden long hair hanging behind his head, and a pair of strange eyes shining brightly. And his beard under his jaw was actually golden, like hard golden threads. The rough and bold face, coupled with a long scar running through the entire face at the right eye, added a touch of prestige to the old man. And the most terrifying thing is that since the arrival of this old man, the elemental forces of heaven and earth in the entire venue have suddenly quieted down, without any further fluctuations. So strong. Lin Xian said to himself in his heart. Master. Yuchuan was pleasantly surprised when he saw the old man and knelt down to bow to him. And Lin Xian, who was beside him, was also pulled by him by the corner of his clothes, indicating that Lin Xian also knelt down like him. But as a traveler, Lin Xian received an education of equality for all from a young age. In addition, he had a fearless personality in his past life, but at this time he did not kneel down. Under the urging of Yuchuan, he lazily pretended to squat down, but his eyes remained fixed on the old man in the field. Farewell to the 4 worshipped lions under their crowns. The many powerful warriors brought by Yuchuan to the Soul's branch hall of Soto City were all paying homage to the golden-haired old man in that scene. Each of these people had an extremely excited expression, as if devout believers were fanatical when they encountered a deity descending from the 9th heaven. If a sentence from Yuchuan's master just now made the people of Shrek Academy not understand its meaning, then the phrase, for sacrifices, referred to among the people of the martial soul hall now makes them feel like they have been struck by lightning, their legs trembling and almost falling to the ground. The 2 words, worship, refer to the Douluo hall, or Douluo shrine, which holds a higher position in the martial soul hall than the one under the control of the Pope. Non-titled Douluo cannot become the elder of the martial soul hall, and super Douluo with a cultivation level of 95 or above cannot be enshrined in the martial soul hall. As far as the people at Shrek Academy know, there are a total of 7 worshippers in the current martial soul hall. And the first person is the former head of the martial soul hall, known as the Invincible Sky Angel Douluo, with 1,000 streams of flow. The life and death of Angel Douluo Qiandao Lu are still in doubt, but the 4 worshipped lion Douluo stands in front of them vividly. It should be noted that after becoming a worshipper, one will have a transcendent position in the Hall of Martial Souls, not only not subject to the Pope's orders, but can even limit the Pope's rights. The Hall of Worship has the power to recall and abolish the Pope, and major affairs in the Hall of Martial Souls are decided by the worshippers. So, even if Xiaogang has a papal order in his hand, and even if contemporary Pope Bibidong personally comes to the Martial Soul Hall, he has no qualification to act recklessly in front of the Lion Douluo. Unexpectedly, Yuchuan's master was enshrined in the Martial Soul Hall. Lin Xian was also quite surprised at this moment, as he had not read any information about this aspect from the original owner's memory. But that's also true. The bloodthirsty lion and the flame lion are truly a series of lion-like martial souls that complement each other. And Yuchuan can achieve strength close to Soul Douluo at the age of just over 40, so it's absolutely impossible without the guidance of a famous teacher. Where does the papal decree in your hand come from? Yukawa is not worthy to ask you, but I am worthy. The voice of Xiongshi Douluo, although not loud, was like a hammer hitting a copper bell, fiercely hitting Xiaogang's mind. Puff. Xiaogang couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, and his body softened and fell to the ground. He is not like Fran and Zhao Wuji, who have soul saint level cultivation, and is also a beast martial soul master who greatly enhances his physical strength. With the martial soul of the farting pig Luo San Pao and the level of a great soul master, Xiaogang cannot resist the power of the male lion Douluo, even if it is unintentionally revealed. At this moment, several meridians in his body were broken, adding insult to injury to his already useless talent. Lin Xian's eyes scanned and he immediately noticed a cold light flashing in Tang San's eyes, who was standing behind several teachers from Shrek. Even relying solely on guessing, Lin Xian had a brain teaser of what Tang San wanted to say in his heart, which was nothing more than bragging about the way to take death. At the same time, Lin Xian also felt the faint sense of crisis that had been on him since just now suddenly disappear. Although he didn't know where the sense of crisis came from, based solely on speculation, Lin Xian also guessed a rough idea. Previously, the transformation of one's own martial soul, coupled with the significant movement caused by the cultivation of the Tai Xian Jing, will inevitably attract the scrutiny of others. And you should know that on the side of Shrek Academy, there is another person who cannot be hidden, but their eyes are constantly observing all situations. Haotian Douluo, Tang Ritian. Previously, the sword without a sharp edge in his hand made all the martial souls of various weapons submit, which would inevitably make Tang Hao, who possessed the Haotian hammer martial soul, aware of it. And the Haotian hammer, known as the first martial soul of the mainland, is now suppressed by his own sword without a blade. According to the shared logic of Tang Hao and his family, he also has a way to take death. But now there are 4 lion Douluo worshipped in the martial soul hall, and Tang Hao, who has been neglected and trained for many years, dare not expose himself despite his greatly weakened combat power. If he fails to take action against himself and instead exposes his identity, openly as the murderer of the former Pope Qianshuan Ji in the martial soul hall and also the precious son of Qiandaoliu, who is enshrined in the hall of worship, the lion Douluo will surely kill him quickly. At that time, even if Tang Hao can run away with his own cultivation, his precious son Tang San cannot run away. In order to prevent Tang Hao, who was hiding in the dark, from quietly killing me, I must ensure that I am always in the sight of the lion Douluo. In other words, as long as I follow the lion Douluo, I can ensure my own safety, Lin Xian decided to himself. At this moment, the lion Douluo also walked up to Lin Xian's side and looked at his lazy and exhausted appearance, but he was not angry. "Kid, don't you want to kneel down to me?" Xiongshi Douluo chuckled. "Do you know who I am? My mother is the one who gave birth to me, and my father is the one who raised me. Apart from his parents, Lin Xian does not want to kneel to anyone." Lin Xian stood up and looked fearlessly at the lion Douluo in front of him. "But senior, you saved my life. Lin Xian will not forget your great kindness, and he will surely repay you with a gushing spring in the future." After saying these words, Lin Xian bowed to the lion Douluo Chang and bowed to the ground. At this moment, Yuchuan stood up and looked at Lin Xian with some blame and some heartache. He knew that Lin Xian's experiences over the years had been very difficult. Although he enjoyed a lot of cultivation resources in the martial soul branch hall of Soto City, the criticism and ridicule he faced were like knives that could kill people, which had already left Lin Xian's heart riddled with wounds. "Master, Lin Xian has this personality. Don't blame him," Yuchuan pleaded with the lion Douluo. After speaking, he told the lion Douluo everything about Lin Xian's experiences over the years. The expression of the Xiongshi Douluo remained unchanged, but he glanced at the shining sword in Lin Xian's hand and asked, "What is the name of your long sword martial soul?" Without a sharp edge, the divine sword has no sharp edge, and it is exquisite and unremarkable. Even if it is covered in speckled rust, with just one strike, it can still kill the person who deserves to be killed, and bring peace to justice. What a person to kill, what a matter of justice, what a sword without a sharp edge. "Ha ha ha, you're really right about my temper." Xiongshi Douluo's face lit up at this moment, with a long smile and a strong pat on Lin Xian's shoulder. "Is the golden scale a thing in the pool?" When encountering wind and clouds, it changes into a dragon. Kid, there's no need to secretly hurt yourself anymore. After today, who can underestimate you? I came to Soto City today to meet my apprentice whom I haven't seen in over a decade, but I didn't expect to find you as a pure and precious gem. Alright, you're right. How can this small Shrek Academy accommodate you? Go back to Martial Soul City with me, where you will become the strongest group of soul masters on the land. At this moment, Yuchuan also had a happy expression on his face. It was the best thing for Xiongshi Douluo to take Lin Xian to the Martial Soul City. Seeing Lin Xian seeming to be pondering, he also spoke up and advised, Lin Xian, although we don't have a father-son relationship, we have also developed some father-son relationships over the years. Today, your talent awakens, and you leap into a dragon. In the future, you will definitely become the top soul master on the mainland. The Martial Soul City is the most central part of the mainland soul master world, which is exactly where you should go. My aptitude is dull, but I hope you can help me fulfill my dream when I was young, standing at the peak of the mainland soul master world. After a slight thought, Lin Xian nodded and said, Okay, Uncle Chuan, I promise you. Of course, this so-called contemplation was also intentional by Lin Xian, just to avoid revealing any flaws. Not to mention that there is no way out now, only by following the Lion Douluo to the Martial Soul City can we avoid the fate of being secretly killed by Tang Hao. When reading the original work in his past life, Lin Xian also disliked the protagonist Tang San's pretense of justice and the hypocrisy and shamelessness of Shrek Academy. In contrast, the side of the Martial Soul Hall is indeed worthy of being the pillar of the mainland Soul Master world. After agreeing to go to the Martial Soul City, Lin Xian smiled again and turned to look at Shrek Academy, saying, however, I still have something to say to Shrek Academy in this so-called Udashi. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. 30 years of Hedong and 30 years of Hexi, don't deceive young people into poverty. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 8. 30 years of Hedong and 30 years of Hexi, don't deceive young people into poverty. Shrek Academy's bandit behavior is like that of a bandit. The teaching environment in the academy is so harsh, but there is a registration fee of 10 golden soul coins. Moreover, if they cannot pass the entrance test, these 10 golden soul coins will not be refunded. Uncle Chuan, this matter should be under the joint jurisdiction of the Lord's Mansion of Soto City and the Martial Soul Branch Hall of Soto City, do you think? The first sentence Lin Xian spoke made Frand and the teachers at Shrek College all change their faces. 10 golden soul coins are the living expenses of an ordinary family for 2 years. If the hard-earned money is swallowed up by Shrek Academy like this, it will inevitably make those young soul masters have no money to enroll in other soul master academies. This is a real desperate plan. What kind of good students can a college like this teach, relying on one's own cultivation to not act chivalrous and righteous, but instead reaching out to the pockets of ordinary people? Lin Xian was raised by Yuchuan since childhood, and although he did not have a father-son relationship, he already had a father-son bond. And Yuchuan is a genuine disciple of the male Lion Douluo, coupled with Lin Xian's extraordinary talent, which has given the over 100-year-old male Lion Douluo a glimmer of love for his future generations. So at this moment, Xiongshi Douluo also coldly added this sentence, adding fuel to Lin Xian's words. And his statement is quite remarkable. Each statue enshrined in the Hall of Worship is the person standing at the pinnacle of power in the Martial Soul Hall, and their words are no different from the oracle. I understand now. I will thoroughly investigate the Shrek Academy matter. And I will also confiscate all the money of the young soul masters who came to register for the academy over the years and return it to the original owner. Yuchuan looked at Frand and Xiaogang and sneered. Killing the seedlings of the soul master realm, even the most vicious evil soul masters would not do such a thing. You so-called Shrek Academy, you have no qualifications to recruit new students until I have found out how much registration fee you have swallowed for soul masters in the Martial Soul branch of Soto City. Upon hearing Yukawa's words, Shrek's eyes were almost filled with flames. As the main source of income for Shrek College, it has been cut off by students at this time, and even all the income over the years has to be returned, which is definitely a major threat to Shrek College's survival. However, Lin Xian had some regrets in his eyes at this moment. Although Shrek College had lost its qualification to admit new students, the 7 monsters of Shrek had already passed the previous rounds of admission tests. Although they did not team up against Zhao Wuji as in the original work, they could still be called new students of Shrek College. If Shrek Academy could miss out on Tang San and other protagonist groups, that would be the greatest pleasure in Lin Xian's heart. However, even if the situation did not succeed, Lin Xian was not disappointed. With his current talent, there were still many opportunities for him to step on Tang San in the future. Alright, since the justice that should have been done for others has already been done, then it's my turn now. Lin Xian smiled faintly and walked slowly towards the direction where Xiaogang had fallen before. And there, the papal decree bestowed upon Xiaogang by Tang Hao lay horizontally on the ground. After Lin Xian picked it up, he casually carried it into his own arms. The origin of this papal decree is in doubt, and I will take it back to the Martial Soul City to investigate where it comes from, Lin Xian said without any redness on his face. Of course, if this papal decree falls into his hands, it will be like beating a dog with meat buns, and there will be no return. The lion Douluo's love for him is beyond words, and he won't be so harsh on him just because of a papal decree. Xiaogang, you claim to be a master and have established the so-called 10 core competition theories of martial souls to deceive and deceive, but in reality, you are a lowly person who uses knowledge stolen from unknown sources as his own knowledge. Lin Xian spoke calmly. You often talk about the saying, there are no useless martial souls, only useless soul masters, but you are not the best counter-evidence yourself. A useless person like you, whose martial soul has not mutated, understands nothing except boasting. You have been mediocre until this age. When I say you are the top scumbag in the Douluo continent soul master world, waiting to die, no one has any objections, Lin Xian sneered. If we really follow what you said, there are no useless martial souls, only useless soul masters. Shouldn't you have achieved the title Douluo long ago? Why are you still a useless person who uses farting as a soul skill, and even talks like farting, which is hard to hear? Puff. Xiaogang finally woke up, but after hearing Lin Xian's words, he was filled with anger and spewed out a mouthful of blood again, fainting. If the damage caused to Xiaogang by the aura released by the male lion Douluo before was physical damage, Lin Xian's words have caused him complete and genuine harm. It's so heart-wrenching. You previously referred to me as a waste, but even though I met the admission requirements for Shrek College, I still refused my application. Even Xiaogang violently kicked me out of Shrek College. So now, I make a promise to everyone at Shrek College. 2.5 years later will be the date of the elite competition of the All-Continent Advanced Soul Master Academy. At that time, my sword without a sharp edge will inevitably cause the participating teams of Shrek Academy to collapse. Although autumn grass withers and turns yellow, spring can fill the mountains and fields with greenery. Although the rusty sword has no edge, it has the power to annihilate all things. 30 years in the east and 30 years in the west, do not deceive young people into poverty. After speaking, Lin Xian waved his sword without a sharp edge, and the blue sword with 2 sleeves of a green snake cut a deep groove on the ground. Subsequently, he followed the lion Douluo towards the direction of Soto City and never turned back. Martial Soul City, Papal Palace. Report. Outside the palace gate, a scout from the Martial Soul Hall hurriedly ran into the magnificent hall. When he saw the stunning woman sitting on the high throne, the detective immediately stopped and bowed, kneeling on one knee on the smooth, mirror-like floor. Pope Bibidong of the Martial Soul Hall put down the thick stack of documents in his hand and rubbed his brow with fatigue. The position of the Pope may seem like the pinnacle of the Soul Master world, but in reality, it involves a multitude of tasks, day and night labor, and little time to rest. What's up? At this moment, the scout's face was somewhat solemn and he said in a deep voice, recently, there has been news from the Martial Soul Branch Hall of the Kingdom of Barak in Soto City that a young twin Martial Soul Master named Lin Xian has appeared in Soto City. He first used his second soul skill to defeat a soul master of the same level with a martial soul of a phoenix, and finally used his first soul skill to defeat a high-level soul master with a martial soul of a white tiger with a sword. Is there such a thing? Bibidong heard the scout's words, and his tired face suddenly disappeared, replaced by a surprised expression. Very good, immediately summon the Martial Soul Branch Hall of Soto City and ask this young soul master to go to the Martial Soul City as soon as possible. Upon hearing Bibidong's words, the detective became somewhat hesitant, as if afraid to say anything. What else is there? Bibidong saw the detective's hesitant expression, and a hint of chill immediately appeared on his face. She knew that there would definitely not be any good news next. Under the crown of the Pope, it's like this. The detective took a deep breath to calm himself down and explained word by word. The Lord of the Martial Soul Branch Hall in Soto City is a disciple of the four sacrificed Lion's Crown. Lion's Crown has been very thoughtful lately and went to Soto City to meet his disciple, but he happened to meet Lin Xian. Lin Xian was raised by a disciple of Lion's Crown since childhood, so he followed Lion's Crown and had already arrived at the Martial Soul City a few days ago. The Temple of Worship. Bibidong stared at the trembling scout below the steps with a tone that sounded like the eternal ice of the far north. All right, you go. The scout breathed a sigh of relief and stood up to leave the papal hall. In the vast palace, only Bibidong was left alone at this moment. Lin Xian, the genius of twin martial souls. Bibi murmured softly in his mouth. You must be my person. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Dapeng rises with the wind on a single day, soaring up 90,000 miles. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Dapeng rises with the wind on a single day, soaring up 90,000 miles. Compared to a city as large as Soto City, the scale of Martial Soul City is much smaller, even less than a quarter of Soto City's area. However, the walls of the Martial Soul City were built according to the specifications of the imperial capitals of the two empires. The 80-meter-high walls looked extremely towering from a distance, and the thickness of the walls exceeded 30 meters. They were entirely repaired by large pieces of granite. The most peculiar thing is that the shape of Martial Soul City is not like a regular city, which is quadrilateral, but rather hexagonal. That is to say, there are a total of 6 walls in the Martial Soul City, and all the Soul Masters who are responsible for patrolling on the walls are wearing the standard clothing of the Martial Soul Hall. The strength of the city defense is evident. On each of the 6 walls of the Martial Soul City, there are huge reliefs with patterns similar to those on the papal decree, symbolizing 6 powerful martial souls. Lin Xian looked at the somewhat empty Martial Soul City, where the streets were filled with shops selling Soul Master supplies, such as ordinary pills, and even storage soul guides, lighting soul guides, and so on. Of course, if something like soul bones is definitely considered a treasure in the entire Soul Master world, it will not be sold in street shops, but will appear in some super large auctions. Looking at this ancient style and charm, the city scenes that were only seen in some movies and TV dramas of his past life, and recalling the steel jungle in which he lived in his past life, Lin Xian couldn't help but feel a sense of difference that seemed like he was in another world. Seeing Lin Xian's emotions seem somewhat low, or rather emotional, a hint of gentleness appeared in the resolute gaze of the lion Douluo standing beside him. Although Lin Xian's talent was excellent, and he even defeated a Soul Lord powerhouse with a cultivation level that surpassed himself by nearly 10 levels in one move, he was only 13 years old after all. Suddenly leaving the city of Soto, where he had lived for many years, and arriving at the center of this continent's Soul Master realm, no one can remain calm in their hearts. Lin Xian, look over there. Suddenly, the lion Douluo patted Lin Xian's shoulder and pointed his right hand towards the center of the martial soul city. Do you know where that is? Being interrupted by the fierce lion Douluo, Lin Xian also woke up from the sense of being a person of two generations. He looked towards the hill located in the center of the martial soul city, and memories of the original work he had read before suddenly emerged. That's the sacred mountain of the martial soul hall, right? Yes, it seems that Yuchuan has taught you a lot. Xiongshi Douluo walked forward with Lin Xian, looking at the nearby divine mountain and nodded with a smile. Yeah, that's where the martial soul hall is located, and it's also the place of faith for all soul masters on the mainland. Lin Xianing looked at the divine mountain of the martial soul city, which was built around this hexagonal martial soul city. On top of the sacred mountain, there are two extremely eye-catching buildings. The building located halfway up the mountain is the most magnificent, even from such a distance, it can be clearly seen. This building is entirely a column structure with a dome design, while the walls and facades outside the building are covered with golden material, shining brightly in the sunlight. That building is the Papal Hall, said the lion Douluo calmly. Contemporary Pope Bibidong was a disciple and wife of the previous Pope Chihiro. The former pope died of serious injuries during a secret mission. Bibidong, on the other hand, rose to the high position of the pope as a woman, standing in opposition to the crowd. Lin Xian's eyes flickered for a moment, and his tone was slightly confused as he asked, "It seems that you have some doubts about this pope's coronation." That's not true either. Because Lin Xian was not very old, and his contact with him all the way left a great impression on him. At this moment, Xiongshi Douluo didn't think of anything else. Bibidong is indeed a very capable person, but alas, those things back then were too intertwined. Who can tell right from wrong? Although Xiongshi Douluo did not say anything, Lin Xian, who had read the script in advance, knew that the so-called past conflicts were the things that Qianxu and Jade did in the secret room to forcibly keep Bibidong in the martial soul hall and prevent her from falling in love with Xiaogang. However, after killing Chihiro Ji, Bibidong also gave birth to a daughter named Chihiro Shui, who possessed an angelic martial soul. But because of what happened back then, Bibidong did not invest any warmth in his daughter. Instead, he sent her to the Tiando royal family as the #1 spy when she was very young. By doing so, Bibidong will greatly slow down the cultivation speed of Qian Rengshu, who possesses divine-level martial souls and innate soul power of level 20. Secondly, if Qian Renshue's actions are not thorough enough and are discovered by the Tiando royal family, he will inevitably die in the Tiando imperial city. Killing the flesh and bones he gave birth to with his own hands, Bibidong will not be able to handle it. If Qian Renshue is left by his side, it will keep Bibidong immersed in the painful memories of the past. But Bibidong's handling of the only bloodline of the six-winged angel clan in this way will naturally attract dissatisfaction and even hostility from the 1,000 paths of the flow and the entire temple of worship. And the entanglements between them, right and wrong, are indeed not something that can be easily explained. Located at the top of the hill is the Douluo Hall, which is also where our martial soul hall worships hermits. The words of the Xiongshi Douluo once again awakened Lin Xian, who was lost in thought. At this moment, the Xiongshi Douluo no longer had the calm expression he had when he mentioned the Papal Hall earlier, with a hint of pride and excitement hidden in his expression. The Douluo Hall is a place where only the deceased Douluo can reside, and it can also be said that it is the tomb of the Douluo. No matter where the Papal Hall is built, the Douluo Hall will be built along with it, and the position of the Douluo Hall must be higher than that of the Papal Hall. At every grand festival, the Pope personally goes to the door of the Douluo temple to worship, but even he has no right to enter the Douluo temple before death. This is a rule that no one can violate, otherwise he will be attacked by all the soul masters in the soul master world. And it is precisely because of the existence of the Douluo Hall that the martial soul city was called the Holy Land of Soul Masters by the Soul Master realm after its establishment. At this moment, Xiongshi Douluo and Lin Xian had already arrived all the way in front of the gate of the Martial Soul Hall. Seeing that it was actually the four-worshipped Lion Douluo who came personally, the Soul Guard of the Martial Soul Hall, who was responsible for guarding the door, quickly bowed deeply and then opened the door. Lin Xian, it's okay. I'll call you Xianer in the future, right? Said the Lion Douluo with a smile. In his eyes, Lin Xian is now as close as his own grandson, so he also uses a nickname for him. Lin Xian also readily agreed to this, although the Lion Douluo didn't know, he saved himself twice. Once, he rescued himself from the hands of Xiaogang, who was holding a papal decree, and then escorted Lin Xian all the way to prevent him from being poisoned by Tang Hao. In his heart, he felt grateful for Yu Chuan's kindness in taking care of the original owner and the Lion Douluo who saved his life. Coupled with his interactions along the way, Lin Xian also regarded the Lion Douluo as a close elder. Lin Xian, since you have arrived at the Martial Soul City, you can let go of all the past experiences you had before. Xiongshi Douluo gently touched Lin Xian's head and said in a warm voice. Don't worry about the criticism and sadness you have suffered in the past. You will never encounter anyone's cold eyes again in the future. In my eyes, I firmly believe that legendary stories about you will surely spread on the Douluo continent in the future. Upon hearing the encouragement from the Lion Douluo, Lin Xian couldn't help but feel a surge of pride in his heart. Looking at the towering sacred mountain in front of him, as well as the two buildings of the Papal Hall and Douluo Hall located on top of the mountain, his heart was filled with vitality and he sang loudly. Dapeng rises with the wind one day, soaring up 90,000 miles. If the wind were to rest for a while, it would still be able to shake the clear waters. Exciting and majestic poetry echoed around, and the Lion Douluo also gave a long smile, about to say something. However, not far in front of him, two strong voices mixed with a smile came at the same time. What a great peng that rises with the wind one day, soaring up 90,000 miles. It is truly a magnificent spirit. Lin Xian, welcome to the Martial Soul Hall. End of this chapter. Chapter 10, Second Martial Soul, Divine Food Series Martial Soul Wine Gourd. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10, Second Martial Soul, Divine Food Series Martial Soul Wine Gourd. Huh, Lao Lu, Lao Chi, it's rare that you didn't practice secretly in the temple. Are you here to welcome my brother? Upon hearing those two vigorous words, the Lion Douluo burst into laughter. And in the direction of his gaze, two tall middle-aged people with short black hair slowly walked over. The two of them not only have the same appearance, but also seem to be twins. Both of them were dressed in luxurious gold-patterned robes, and the cloak behind the person walking on the left was purple, with a purple headscarf tied to their black short hair. The other person's cloak is red and there is no headscarf, so their hair looks loose. If you don't look at the clothing, the only difference between the two is that the middle-aged man wearing a purple headscarf has a long scar on the corner of his right eye. Although it doesn't cross his face like the scar on the Lion Douluo, it is still quite frightening. When they saw the Lion Douluo, their faces were also full of smiles. Among them, the middle-aged man wearing a red cloak laughed and said, "Fourth brother, it's okay for you to be calm and thoughtful. You have selected a young dragon and phoenix for our Martial Soul Hall. There is no need for the introduction of the Xiongshi Douluo." Lin Xian also knew that the two people in front of him should be the 6 offering thousand Jun Douluo and the 7 offering demon subduing Douluo in the Martial Soul Hall. They are a pair of twin brothers, and their martial souls are extremely rare coiled dragon sticks. Although their cultivation is not as good as that of the Lion Douluo, the combined combat power of the two is absolutely remarkable, and they can even fight beyond their level. After all, the two have been working together for nearly 100 years, and their level of understanding is unmatched. Lin Xian, these two are both my old brothers. The one on your left is the 6 offerings of Qianjun Douluo in the temple, and this one is the 7 offerings of demon subduing Douluo. Xiongshi Douluo introduced Lin Xian with a smile. Lin Xian has seen the two crowns before. At this moment, Lin Xian immediately clasped his fists and saluted, and his humble and respectful attitude immediately gained the favor of the two worshippers. Xianjun Douluo lifted Lin Xian with a smile and patted his shoulder, saying, "You don't need to be polite. Since we have entered the martial soul hall, we are a family." Compared to his calm and decisive older brother Xianjun Douluo, the demon-subduing Douluo has a somewhat unconventional personality. At this moment, he also patted Lin Xian's shoulder as he walked over, showing a look of impatience. "Lin Xian, I saw the message from the fourth brother returning to the temple of worship before. It seems that you are the sole master of the twin martial souls, right? I heard that your long sword martial soul is very powerful. Can you show it to me now?" said the demon-subduing Douluo enthusiastically. "And what exactly is your other martial soul? Let me open my eyes. After all, the soul masters of twin martial souls are really rare." Upon hearing the words of the demon-subduing Douluo, Lin Xian and the lion Douluo were both stunned. The two of them looked at each other awkwardly at this moment, with very strange expressions on their faces. Before seeing the scene of Lin Xian defeating Ma Hongjun and Dai Mubai with one enemy and two enemies, Xiongshi Douluo greatly appreciated his talent. Therefore, he exchanged a lot of knowledge about soul masters with Lin Xian along the way, hoping to guide him in his cultivation. But Lin Xian was not only a traveler from another world to the Douluo continent, but also read the complete series of books written by that adult on the Douluo continent. Although he did not have a detailed understanding of this world, Lin Xian knew some about the general direction of Soul Master's soul power cultivation, even after becoming a god. So throughout this journey, Xiongshi Douluo has gained a lot from his dialogue with Lin Xian, and even shows signs of breakthrough in cultivation. You should know that the Xiongshi Douluo is the peak Douluo of the 97-level strong attack system, enshrined in the Martial Soul Hall. Once his cultivation truly breaks through, he will be promoted to level 98, and he is only one step away from the peak of humanity at level 99. So, with joy in his heart, Xiongshi Douluo forgot to take a look at Lin Xian's second martial soul. Lin Xian, on the other hand, was not originally from this world and was not sensitive to things like martial souls. Previously, he was intoxicated by the unparalleled sharpness of the Wufeng sword, as well as the powerful power of the Tai Xian Jing technique and the two soul techniques of the two sleeves green snake and the heaven-slaying sword. So these days I have been working hard to cultivate, and I have also forgotten my second martial soul, which is also a divine level martial soul. Extending his left hand and sinking his mind into the sea of intent, Lin Xian attempted to summon his second martial soul for the first time. Good wine, is it a century-old jade ice wine? Sigh, it's not right. Suddenly, the wings of the demon-slaying Douluo's nose twitched, as if he could smell some strange aroma. However, in an instant, his gaze turned to Lin Xian, or rather, to his left hand. I saw an extra purple-red gourd in Lin Xian's hand at this moment. The surface of the gourd was shiny and glossy, just like being carved from top-quality jade. On top of this gourd is a small stopper, and the refreshing aroma of wine smelled by the demon-slaying Douluo emanates from the inside of the gourd below that stopper. Wine gourd. The broken yellow gourd with the leaking eye of the martial soul completely turns black, transforming into a divine-level martial soul. The wine gourd has its own devouring ability, and can automatically absorb external heaven and earth elemental forces to form wine liquid without summoning. Drinking it can restore soul power and physical strength, and increase blood gas intensity. It can also swallow animals and plants with strong energy to brew higher quality wine. Different quality wine liquids can be stored separately. Food-based martial soul. Lin Xian thought with some surprise in his heart. He didn't expect that his original broken gourd martial soul, after being blacked out, would become a relatively rare food-type martial soul. But my wine gourd is different from Oscar's sausages. Drinking too much alcohol makes it easy to get drunk, Lin Xian said helplessly in his heart. Drinking alcohol makes you blush and have a thick neck, and then fighting with other soul masters or soul beasts, isn't that seeking death? When he secretly roused in his heart, the devil subduing Douluo standing by could not stand it any longer. As a worshipper of the martial soul hall, both he and the old men Qianjun Douluo and Xiongshi Douluo have never left the martial soul city much. Their only pleasure in daily life is to drink and talk together. In other words, in front of Lin Xian stood 3 drunken masters who were as good as life. The aroma of the wine gourd in Lin Xian's hand was like an old pervert encountering a beautiful yellow flower girl, which made them unable to resist. Lin Xian, can you give me this wine? Blush of the subduing devil fighter blushed. For the first time, he didn't give me any gifts to meet you. Instead, he asked for something first. Even he felt a little embarrassed. But Lin Xian was not a blind person either. Seeing the 3 old men in front of him eagerly looking at the wine gourd in his hand, he quickly wanted to pass it to them. Hey, no, let's use this wine as a beauty accessory. Qianjun Douluo waved his right hand and surprisingly took out several exquisite sheep fat white jade wine glasses from his storage soul guide. Lin Xian poured the fine wine from the wine gourd into 4 glasses, and the refreshing aroma of the wine immediately spread around, even making the guards of the martial soul hall who were on duty nearby suck their saliva. Okay. The demon subduing Douluo was overjoyed, and he picked up the sheep fat white jade cup in front of him and drank it all in one gulp. The liquor is as soft as honey syrup at the entrance, and as sweet as a clear spring. In a blink of an eye, it turns into a stream of heat flowing down the stomach, causing the demon-conquering Douluo to let out a contented sigh. Seeing the somewhat unremarkable appearance of his foolish Dowdu, Qianjun Douluo shook his head helplessly. He raised the wine glass in front of him and smiled at Lin Xian, saying, Lin Xian, if you give us fine wine, as elders, we naturally cannot take your things for free. We will test you later and then give you a satisfying meeting gift. At this moment, in the papal hall, Pope Bibidong of the martial soul hall gently closed the folds in his hand, his beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and he turned his head to say to a girl with short golden hair next to him. Nar, that's all for today's study of handling files with me. An interesting newcomer has arrived in the martial soul hall. Come and take a look with me. Okay, teacher. End of this chapter.